Okay, real talk. In America, white people are on SNAP more than any other group. And honestly, every American should be on SNAP. The reason why is because your tax dollars already subsidize farmers. If you're paying into the system, you should get something out of it. And that's common knowledge. Common Knowledge Podcast, just a man doing the best he can with what he got. And a lot of y'all gonna hear that opening statement and be like, oh, Marcus, there you go again, making everything about race. And I'm gonna tell you to shut the hell up because everything's been about race. When you talk about SNAP in particular and entitlement programs, it's always positioned as black people taken away from everybody else, like lazy black people who don't want to work and are looking for government handouts. And the truth of the matter is, most of you guys don't know what an entitlement program is. Social Security is an entitlement program. Unemployment insurance is an entitlement program. VA benefits is an entitlement program. It's just when you hear entitlements, you like to think about people who have not paid into the system and are not doing anything to get these government benefits. And I get tagged into a lot of conservative commentary because, once again, I have discussions with a lot of people online. And the benefit add to that is I get what they think and I'm able to have a point of view and say that point of view on this podcast, and I can strengthen my arguments. But this one conservative tagged me in this post where they said Democrats are too busy campaigning for Mock Donnie and socialism to open up the government. And my reply to him was, hey man, when did we hate socialism in America? Because we got a bunch of socialist programs. And this is an older gentleman in his 60s. So I was like, if you hate socialism, why don't you give up your Social Security and protest? And his reply was, that's not an entitlement program. I'm like, no, dude, it is. Go look it up. Literally, go look it up. It's literally in the name, Social Security. It is socialism. And while you at it, man, let's get rid of free roads. Let's get rid of public schools and colleges. And let's get rid of all subsidies, because say it with me, that is socialism. There should be no subsidies. Get rid of oil subsidies. Get rid of food subsidies. That is socialism. America is a capitalist country with socialism in it. We are a mixed economy. And it kills me that people don't know that. Social Security is an entitlement program. Americans in general love entitlement programs when they're benefiting from them. It's just, we care about who is getting what entitlement and what group of people seem to be getting that the most or perceive to be getting those the most. Like I told that gentleman, you're not against entitlement programs. You're just against entitlement programs you're not receiving. Do you know that 60% of the people on SNAP are actually working? True story. Go look it up. 60% of the people who are getting SNAP benefits are already working. It's just they're not getting a livable wage and are not able to cover their expenses. Corporate profits have skyrocketed under this current administration for this first year. If you have money in the stock market, you are doing okay. But if you work at Walmart, you are not. And statistically, the one corporation that has more employees working there that is on SNAP is Walmart. Make that make sense. With their record-breaking corporate profits this year, they have the most employees on SNAP. And another high ranker on the list is Starbucks. The Starbucks CEO makes 600 times the amount of the baristas. His baristas are on SNAP. He's yucking it up. You guys are looking in the wrong spots. And this is one thing that I feel like President Trump got right with the tariffs. Tariffs are taxes. And if you have a deficit, that means you don't have enough money coming in. The only way you can stop a deficit is by having more money coming in. So dude found a way to tax you guys by reframing it as not taxes. And because it's cronyism at its highest, if you're a part of his crew, a clique of homies, Guess what? You don't even get taxed. And you guys are not saying anything about that. There's a government shutdown going on right now while Apple, American company, sits on a $4 trillion market cap. NVIDIA, an American company, sits on a $4 trillion market cap. Do you think them folks would notice if you raised their taxes just by 5%? What happened to the good old Kennedy? Ask not what your country could do for you. Ask what you could do for your country. What you could do is give us 5% extra to pay for stuff. And let me give you guys some inside pool. Like, a lot of folks want to be on my podcast. A lot of conservatives in particular want to be on my podcast. I get emails every week about conservatives who want to come on and spread their point of view on my podcast. And there's a big debate culture in America. America was founded on like civil disobedience and being able to talk out your discussions. So I'm always down to have a debate and a discussion with somebody. But debate culture in America has gotten crazy, and it's mainly the fault of the right. And that's because you guys don't know what a debate is. You don't know how to debate. A debate is a structured discussion between opposing viewpoints, often with rules, time limits, and a moderator. You got to emphasize logical reasoning and evidence. And a lot of you guys have no evidence. And most of your evidence is not even backed up by anything. It's how you feel. So if you're just going by emotions, we can't debate because you haven't even researched what you're debating. You're just an emotional wreck. Then it becomes this weird thing where you feel like I have to listen to you. But one thing these conservatives forget is that I don't have to debate with you, dog. Like, we don't have to talk. I don't have to debate because you want to debate. And in most cases, it's not a debate. It's an argument and a way for them to just get their hateful rhetoric off, right? It's them just spewing their guts and wanting to say incendiary, a lot of times racist shit on a platform. So I don't debate a lot of people. Like, if I honestly care about what you think, I will have you on, be like, hey man, I want to know what you think, because I have a curious nature. That's why I majored in broadcasting. I legit have a curious nature, and I want to know why people think the way they think. But in all honesty, if I don't want to know how you think, I don't care. People will tell you, man, I can read incendiary comments about me all day and be like, okay, cool. You got a right to think that. Next comment. But people think that you just have to be heard. And these social media platforms make you guys think that you have a right to say whatever you want to say, but you don't have no right to be heard. Even on this podcast, you can turn it off right now. So when a lot of conservatives come up here, want to debate, I ask them what they want to debate. And I'd be like, nah, I don't feel like debating that. Like, seriously, I'm not debating human rights with you. That's undebatable. That's not something we're going to talk about. I'm not going to debate human dignity, right? We can debate policy all day, but I'm not going to argue with you guys about rights. That's non-debatable to me. If you have a compelling argument about policies, sure. But I'm not going to debate all these wacko, dehumanizing topics with y'all. I'm just not. Nor do I have to. Like, right after the death of Charlie Kirk, there was a conservative debate group that went to TSU. Uninvited, by the way, unannounced, did not clear it with campus security right after the death of Charlie Kirk. And one thing I want to point out about after the death of Charlie Kirk, right after the death of Charlie Kirk, HBCUs were threatened. Had nothing to do with the death of Charlie Kirk. Black folks wasn't really even there in Utah. That's like white Africa, Utah, killed by a white man on a white campus. And instantly HBCUs were attacked. I want y'all to put that in perspective. But right after that, a conservative group visited TSU and they displayed a sign that said DEI should be illegal, and another sign that said deport all illegals now. Let's talk. We don't have to talk. I can see that sign and be like, no, I don't want to talk about you. And furthermore, if you're on a campus, a place where I live unannounced, I have the right to get angry that you're there and be like, hey man, get the hell off my yard. You're not supposed to be there. But that's the problem with today's culture. Y'all feel like, hey man, I should be able to say whatever the hell I want to say with no pushback, and we should talk about it. And honestly, no, We don't have to talk about it. Like some things shouldn't be up for debate. And I feel like one thing that shouldn't be up for debate is SNAP benefits. SNAP benefits should not be used as a political cudgel. There is food insecurity in America. A lot of people don't know where their next meals is coming from. In the richest country in the world, by the way, a lot of people don't know where their next meal is coming from. And yeah, guys, more than one thing can be true. You can hit me right now with, oh, personal responsibility. Spend less than you make. Why do you have so many kids, right? Because that's the prevailing sentiment with people on SNAP. Oh, you're on welfare. You got multiple baby daddies. And you know what gets me? All this political signaling. Folks claim they're conservatives because they believe in responsibility. But right now, the government is spending money like a drunken sailor. We're bailing out Argentina. Like, you can't make this up. You can't tell me there's no money for SNAP benefits when you're giving Argentina $40 billion. What are we debating? Like, seriously, if we're debating something, you already lost because the counter argument is right there. Like, you can't tell me there's no money for Americans and you're giving Argentina $40 billion. Let's just call it what it is. It's a bailout, not a currency swap. The US dollar is 300% stronger than the Argentinian peso. That's like me giving you $3 and you give me 1 penny back. Argentina has defaulted 5 times. We're not getting that money back, guys. That money is gold. And the irony is Argentina's biggest customer is China. And what are they selling? Soybeans. The same soybean American farmers lost access to when Trump's trade war wrecked their business. So to fix what we broke, we are funding a country selling to China, our rival. That's not America first. That's America confused. Meanwhile, you got hungry Americans right now wondering what they're going to eat. And the kicker is Trump is talking about bailing out those farmers who lost the sale of their crops because of him. When you can't feed people who need it right now in America. Make this shit make sense, guys. Make it make sense. That's why I don't debate you guys. Like, either you're going to research and get your facts straight, come with a premise and a topic, then I can debate you all day, man. But most of the time when I debate some of these guys, the information is wrong, not factual. It's holes in everything. So I'm like, yo, we can't debate because you're not using logic. You're using emotions. And that's what all this is. It's just emotions. But there was a contingency plan for this. The government made a contingency plan under Biden that even under the event of a government shutdown, SNAP could be funded. There was money set aside for this, allocated for this. And as it stands now, a federal judge has said the Trump administration has to use this money because, once again, they can spend $40 billion on Argentina, but money set aside for starving Americans for their entitlement program can't be used. But a federal judge says they have to use those funds. So now let's just see if the Trump administration abides by that federal ruling. And if they don't abide by this federal ruling, you got to ask yourself, man, what kind of country you really live in? Just something to think about. But everybody should be on SNAP because your tax dollars pay for farmers to grow all those crops. You're giving money. You should get something back. But that'll be socialism, which we're good for if you're a big corporation. But if you're a little person, oh, no. You can't get to socialism. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. All while your tax dollars goes to make the rich richer. Go figure. All right, so this next segment is for black people in America. And if you're a black American right now, and if you're a white American, it's a weird thing that happens. Anything that is pro-black is positioned to be anti-white, and that's not the case. It's really not. And it's weird as a black American because you're not allowed to talk about black issues in a positive light. For example, a lot of my white counterparts can rattle off crime rates. And usually those crime rates include black on black crime, which is a made up statistic, really shouldn't be a thing in America where everybody's supposed to be Americans, but they'll give you the crime rates based on race. But they only can spout out the black stats. They never can tell you what white on white crime is, which means if we can get the white on white crime rate and get the black on black crime rate down to the white on white crime rate, magically crime disappears. Because we use crime as a dog whistle word for black. So when you see all these National Guard deployments, as a black American, you know that's targeted towards you. That's the code word. When you hear tough on crime, as a black person, your mind instantly goes to, oh, they're finna make it harder on black people. And a lot of y'all hearing that and saying, well, that's because black people do crimes. Okay, once again, what crimes are we talking about? Because usually when you guys talk about crimes, you only talk about murders. Black people are number one in murders. And the whole 50% of all murders done by 14% of the population has been debunked royally. That has been debunked many times. But that stat is still used. So let's just assume that stat is right. Why do y'all only do murders? Like that's the only heinous crimes. White folks in America are the number one pedophiles. White people, y'all are sick. You touch kids more than anybody else. It's crazy because just this week, I saw multiple reports of pedophilia. Nothing but white people. That is a white people crime if you're going by race. What was it? An ex-Mississippi teacher charged for AI porn of students was hired by State Child Protective Services. Mississippi teacher. What's another one? I just saw it. Yeah. Tampa Christian school teacher accused of child pornography possession. What's another one? Ex-child welfare agency hires ex-teacher accused of creating AI porn. I know you're thinking it's the one before. Nope, different one. What was another one? What was it? Oh, couple from Oklahoma arrested after 11-year-old daughter gives birth at home. All these white people, CEO of Evolve Bank, charged with sexual exploitation of minor, distributing obscene material after arrest in Memphis, record shows. Pedophiles, usually white people, statistically, but you guys don't talk about that. That crime doesn't exist because it doesn't include black people. Now, here's the thing, guys. I honestly could give a fuck less the race of a pedophile. I don't care what race you are. You are a sick fuck. And I believe if you hurt a child or the most vulnerable among us, I should be able to take you out back and put two in your head. That's literally how I feel when it comes to that. I don't use those heinous crimes as a way to say, hey, look at that race over there. But when it comes to black people, it's often used. Crime or our downfalls are used to point out and make us feel inferior. Like when people talk about these crimes, they never give solutions. The only solution people give is policing. more punishment, no economic opportunity, no viable outlook for the future, no investments in education. And one of the biggest downfalls of the Black community is financial literacy. In order to build Black wealth in America and to have a sustainable community, you're going to need three things. You need schools, hospitals, and banks. And out of the three, the most important one is the money, the banks. You need money to make the other two happen. We need that before we can do anything. And I'll argue with you, we already have the money in America. Yes, Black Americans already have enough money. We have a legit wealth building mechanism in America that we're not using right. And that is the Black churches. We are not utilizing Black churches properly. And these are my thoughts about, and I'm gonna give you my thoughts. And one thing I hate about today's climate is everybody wants to be our thought leaders, but nobody gives out any thoughts. And these are my thoughts. And let me also point out, I'm not a religious person. I am not a Christian. These are my thoughts. And I'm not saying this is the only way that the Black community can move forward, but these are my ideas. If you have a better idea, man, hey, refine this idea, make it better, and present it. But if you're going to be a thought leader, I need y'all to start giving out thoughts. And here's mine. Black people are some of, if not the most, religious people in America. One thing I have always seen growing up, no matter what the circumstances, I have seen Black folks give tithes and offering. And that is a level of discipline, fiscal discipline, that we need to utilize to build wealth in America. My beliefs are that if you're tithing 10% of every paycheck, but you don't have an emergency fund or money saved up to deal with your family, something is wrong. If you're giving 10% to the church, no matter what, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, something is terribly off. If you're making a sacrifice every paycheck to set aside 10% to give to a building, something is totally wrong. You should be paying yourself before you pay any church. But I've seen this multiple times where people who have nothing will give their last to a church in hopes of being blessed with more money, like using tithes as a Ponzi scheme. I have come to look at tithes and offering at some, not all, at some Black churches as scratch-offs. You might as well go buy some scratch-offs because y'all looking to hit. But people will use tithes as some kind of Ponzi scheme, like, hey, man, if I just keep on giving and giving and giving, I'm going to get money back. And that's not how it works, man. Black churches are financial engines. It is estimated that Black churches in America bring in close to $2 to $19 billion a year. $2 to $19 billion a year. Let's just lowball it. $2 billion a year in Black churches. If you go by a Pew report, Black Americans remain highly religiously engaged. Congregations are central hubs, so they should be platforms for economic coordination. And look, this has been done by Black churches, but it needs to be mandatory for all Black churches. If you are opening up a church, a black church. You should be an economic hub for that community. And I got an idea of how we can do it. First, every church needs to invest. It needs to be mandatory. We got to hold our black churches accountable. Every church has to run an endowment and follow investment policies. You got to invest in index funds with 3 to 5% spending rules to fund the ministry and community works. Now, some of y'all might be asking, Marcus, what's an endowment? An endowment is a gift of money or assets given to an institution like a university, a hospital, museum, or nonprofit that is invested so that the income from it supports the institution's mission over the long term. So first, every black church needs an endowment. Has to be mandatory. And I will have a link to this plan. If you guys want to build on it, refine it, or tell me what you think I got wrong, I'll be more than happy to share a link to it. But you need an endowment to build long-term financial strength for black churches, increase community support, and grow generational wealth through endowment funds. So, point one, you got to establish a permanent endowment. Each participating church should establish a true endowment. And what a true endowment is that you never touch the principal. Only the investment's returns can be used to support the church. So every church needs to create a true endowment. The churches will be given a 10-year grace period, which the church can focus on building that principal balance for the endowment using tithes and offering. Now, you gotta have a target size. The endowment principal has to equal to twice the church's annual budget. So, for example, if the church annual budget is $500,000 a year, the principal in that endowment has to be $1 million. Once the endowment is funded, the church can only draw 4 to 5% of the market value annually. And this is important. So if the church has $1 million endowment, typically the stock market gives you 8 to 10% in returns. You can only take out 4%. So off $1 million, you should have $50,000 a year to run the church and to take care of day-to-day expenses. The bigger the endowment, the more interest you can pull out. So if that's not enough, if you need $100,000 to run the church's operations, then you need $2 million principal in that endowment. Get what I'm saying? So at this point, once you get this principal, your church should be a self-funding entity. You don't have to depend on tithes and offering anymore because you have enough principal set aside to keep that church moving. And the principal remains untouched. You can't touch it. That principal has to stay there. You can only use the returns. Operational spending from the endowment returns should be tied to a mission purpose, like worship, outreach, or community services. Now, this is important because a lot of you black churches don't want to give up your 501c because you're getting tax credits. So that's important. It has to be connected to worship, outreach, and community services. Now, I'm telling you, I am not a Christian. You need to focus more on community services and outreach than worship, which leads to point number 3. Each one of these churches had to have growth in membership expansion restrictions. During that 10-year buildup period, the church has to limit its large scale and major capital projects. That's right. No more building fund. The building you have is the building you stay in for at least 10 years or until you get enough principal. And the idea here is to stabilize your finances first, to make sure it's a self-funding entity. You cannot expand. Now, after the period, the church may expand membership outreach once the endowment is strong enough to support at least 10% of members' living expenses. Like this metric may need to be adapted for your local community. Right now, the average salary in Memphis, the area I live in, is around $45,000. So 10% of that for all of your members before you can expand. Which leads to point number 4. You got to have a strong governance and investment policy. The church should adapt a formal investment policy and endowment spending policy, which is typical practices. You got to set up an endowment committee or a board oversight separate from the everyday church operations to ensure fiduciary discipline. Then you got to have document donor restrictions, if any, an investment strategy, risk management, and reporting to the congregation. You should have quarterly reports given to the congregation about the investments and how much money you have. Like, y'all should be doing this anyway. Like, seriously, there should be no time at any church where the members don't know how much money the church has, where the money at, and where it's going. We need more transparency in our churches, which leads to point 5, transparency and communication. Regular reporting to congregation, endowment size, investment returns, spending, and community impact has to be a must. You have to ensure donors and members understand that this is an endowment for sustainability and long-term mission, not just annual giveaways. Now, this is important because it is illegal for a nonprofit to give out dividends and act like a bank. I am not saying that that's illegal, but it is not illegal for community outreach and mission purposes. And one of your missions in the Black church should be food sustainability and security, along with living security. So quarterly, every member should get something back in the way of member outreach. Every quarter, every member in your church should get something. Am I saying that has to be a set dividend? No. Whatever the endowment gives you from the other 4 to 8% that's not being reinvested, you give to your members. You set aside 2% to give to every member. The bigger the endowment grows, the principal goes, and the interest grows from that, the more you give to your members. The Black churches should be giving something back to its members in the way of everyday expenses. You need to be relieving some of the burdens of your members. There should be no members in your church who have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. Which goes to my next point. Each Black church has to be responsible for teaching fiscal responsibility and financial literacy. And this is a burden because a lot of these Black churches don't have it themselves. But that should be the epicenter of financial literacy. But a lot of our Black churches aren't doing that, which is going to get me in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway. Historically, tithes is connected to the Old Testament. It started in Genesis when Abraham gave 1/10 of his spoils to the priest king. And later in Leviticus, Mosaic law formalized the tithes as a mandatory contribution of 10% of your crops, herd, or produce. Now, the purpose of tithes was to fund temple services, help the poor, widows, and foreigners You can see that in Deuteronomy. That's right, foreigners. That was the purpose of tithes, to help the foreigners and maintain religious operations. It was an economic system for sustaining the priesthood and community welfare. But in the New Testament, Jesus mentioned tithing in Matthew 23 and 23, affirming that under Mosaic law, tithing was supposed to be it, but emphasizing justice, mercy, and faith over ritual giving, which I am to understand that Jesus' thought on tithing was, hey man, more importantly than giving your money was justice, mercy, and faith. Then that's later confirmed by the homie, the Apostle Paul, aka Saul of Tarsus, in 2 Corinthians 9, 6-7, where he said, giving should be voluntary and cheerful, not legalistic. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion. And that interpretation, it frames giving as spiritual stewardship and community support, not a wealth formula. And it should be up to the person if they can give or not. But the modern application and financial reality is that tithing is often preached as sowing a seed for blessings, a biblical Ponzi scheme. But biblical context shows that it was supposed to be an act of communal care, not for investment. Like many modern churches use tithes and salaries to build their mission. But if a person's in debt and struggling, redirecting that 10% into a high yield savings account or ETF, in my opinion, is more beneficial, right? Is faithfulness in your faith about how much you can give, or is it about how wisely you can manage what you have? And I struggle with this. I am not a Christian now, but I grew up in a heavily Christian household, right? And one thing that was taught to me is the Bible says your body is a temple in church in many different ways, like in 1 Corinthians 6-9-20. Do you know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit? And this is to mean that God dwells in your believers, not the building. The church is you. Then Ephesians says believers collectively form a holy temple in the Lord, which means the church is the people, not the structure. So, if your body is the church and your body is the temple, logically, I say you pay yourself 10% before you give it to any building. And if you're going to give 10% to a building, an establishment that calls themselves a church, you should demand transparency and something be given back to you. Not necessarily in monetary means, but every member should get something back to help them quarterly. Whether that be, hey man, I don't care who you are, you get food this month. Because our dividends from investments are this, we're using that to give every member of this church food for this month. Whether it be, hey man, because the dividends from this endowment has done so well, we're using those investments to buy every member school clothes this year, or at least put 50% down on your school clothes. Even if it's 10%, you're getting something back. Most of the time, and this is personal, what I've seen, your church may be different, but in all the black churches I've seen, it's usually somebody struggling on their last leg, and everybody has to scrape together some money to be a blessing to that person on their last leg. Usually because of bad fiscal responsibility or bad fiscal choices. And they come up begging and crying, praying, and we give them money. That needs to be eliminated. We have to teach fiscal discipline and understand what that looks like. And what it looks like is making sacrifices. We preach sacrifices all the time in churches, but that's going to have to apply to how we look at money. You're going to have to do without Netflix. You're going to have to do without streaming services, Spotify. You're going to have to ride that beater. You're going to have to only buy used cars until the community gets uplifted. There's no reason, if you are a mega black church, that you should not own most of the real estate in your community. You should. There's no law against you owning more real estate. It's not. The biggest real estate owner in the world is the Catholic Church. I struggle as I get older to define what black solidarity looks like. Like we always say, black folks need to come together. We need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We need to take responsibility. And I ask myself all the time, like, what does black solidarity look like? And I feel like me as a non-religious person, I can tell you, man, that even though I don't subscribe to this faith, I'm not knocking you for subscribing to it. But even the Bible says faith without works is dead. So you need to start working, right? But hey, that's my plan. That's part of my plan. And I'm going to try to give more ideas on how black folks can get better. But we need to start talking to black people instead of at them. And if you are a person that likes to bring up black crime rate and all the downfalls of the black community, my next question to you is, what are your thoughts? How are you going to make the black community better? Because so very often, a lot of y'all don't care about making the black community better. You just want to talk about black people. And that's the God honest truth.